Second part, The Way Home, Chapter 29, The Ego's Way of Thinking. The vision of the ego. From this moment on, we're going to enter into the ego's way of thinking, with all that this implies. It can be painful, but this pain is only a perception of the ego that resists losing its influence in our life. We must not forget that communication is the best way to become aware. We will see that the ego communicates to separate and the Holy Spirit to become aware of oneself. A Course in Miracles says, the ego, therefore, is against communication, except when it is used to establish separation rather than to abolish it. The communication system of the ego is based on its own system of thought, just like everything else that it imposes. Your communication is controlled by the need to protect yourself, and will interrupt communication whenever you feel threatened. This interruption is a reaction to one or several specific persons. The Spirit is in complete and direct communication with all aspects of creation, because he is in complete and direct communication with the Creator. This communication is perfectly abstract, since its application is of a universal quality and is not subject to any trial, exception or alteration. The vast majority of people harbor a desire within them that moves them to look at heaven. Since the dawn of time, humanity has always tried to explain the inexplicable by attributing it to a god or a force that controls lives. All cultures have worshipped who they consider the doer or doers of everything that happens. Normally, they are capricious and humanized gods, with feelings and emotions like ours. Therefore, we can talk about the wrath of God without any problem or flush. We make the gods in our image and likeness. The ego says that we have to fear God because he can punish us and is prone to send us plagues and diseases without any regard. We feel guilty and we think we are disinherited, therefore we have to make many sacrifices and punish the body as the maximum responsible for our misfortunes and disappointments. There is something inside us that pushes us back home. Since we live in a dual mind, we think and believe that we have to do something special for God to let us return so we can rest. We establish a whole series of rites, commandments, obligations, fasts, penances, and corporal punishment. We praise pain and suffering as means of expiation, believing that we will be allowed to enter paradise. The need to return home is well known. When you live with a feeling of lack, this makes us look for idols and more idols. We never feel prepared. We believe that the way back home is a spiritual path full of pain, sacrifice and suffering, and that we have to study techniques and more techniques to prepare ourselves for the great moment of enlightenment. Then the merchants of the temple appear in our lives, asking us for money so that we can make our offerings and please this God we are so afraid of. We never feel prepared, we are always insecure. We believe that we lack the capacity to develop what we feel in our heart. We want to be healers, to help others, to be bearers of peace, and we are in permanent conflict with ourselves. We are unable to realize that what we see outside is just what we project it, therefore, it is within us. The ego rejoices with all this. The ego enjoys when we feel discouraged, helpless, small, abandoned, when we think we do not know enough and we have to prepare. We are always preparing ourselves, without being aware that the secret is not only in the study, but in the experience. The most difficult lesson we must learn is that truth is truth, a fundamental lesson in simplicity. This is the hardest lesson you will ever have to learn and, after all, the only one. Simplicity is very difficult for twisted minds. difficulty is the ego's main weapon to discourage us and to stop looking for the way back home. The ego makes us believe that being with God is difficult and requires great efforts and sacrifices. The Holy Spirit and the ego never can find each other. Both have a very different and equally coherent plan, because both are in the divided mind of the Son of God. Let's not forget that the ego has been created by the mind that thought itself separate. If we want to fulfill a special function in this world, the Course offers us one. Your special function is that particular form that seems more meaningful and sensible to you to demonstrate the fact that God is not demented.